We welcome in now Trent Dilfer to the 24/7 Sports video series Social Distance. Trent, really appreciate you stopping by. I know you're busy. You've been a popular guy here recently. I guess first things first, how are you handling just quarantine life? You've been able to get outside a little bit, I guess, but are you going crazy yet?
This does not suit my personality very well. I have I do really sympathize for a lot of people going through really tough times. Those that are ill, that aren't safe, those are losing jobs. I get it. So I'm not going to complain about a thing. I've tried to adjust. I got my two college girls back home living with us. We were supposed to be empty nesting this year. That's kind of backfired on us. So it's nice having them in the house. Trying to get out as much as I can. The work with Tua has kept me busy. But I think we're all just trying to find a new way to adjust to the circumstances we're all in.
Sure. I wanted to talk about Tua, obviously, draft coming up, and he is probably as popular of a name to discuss right now as there is. And there's a lot to it, but I wanted to start here. You've trained a lot of these guys. You've trained hundreds, or at least been around a lot of these guys.
Been around. Yeah, I think been around. Better word,
and so I'm sure you got a lot of relationships, and I'm sure you've had other opportunities to train guys or been presented with that. I'm just curious, why was Tua the quarterback that you kind of did take on as some pre-draft training?
Yeah, it's a great question. I remember, I want to get my years right here, 7-8 years ago when this kind of became, George was doing some of it. Guys were tinkering in it, but it really wasn't an industry for a lot of these quarterback developers. And I kind of told the Elite 11 staff and everybody, listen, I'm not going to get into this space. Just know that I'm not going to get into it. I was working in TV at the time. I knew kind of the behind the scenes narratives with the media, with NFL organizations, with college coaches many times. And I just didn't want to get in these waters. And also, a lot of these guys, as you know, were launching businesses at the time. I mean, Quincy Avery's done an incredible job. Jordan Palmer, incredible job. Justin Hoover in Kansas City. Paul Troth in D.C. Jake Heaps in the Northwest. Alex Brink. I go on and on and on. These guys have really developed a nice little core business, and they benefit the quarterbacks they're training. And I didn't want to steal business from them. I give you context because I had said no. And really I wasn't even approached that much because I made it known that I'll come in, I'll help, I'll consult. If you have a question on a drill set or work capacity or sequencing or tape evaluation, I'd be more than happy to help, but I didn't want to take the lead on anything. Two is different. We had a really neat relationship dating back to his time with the Elite 11. I really connected well with his parents, Diane and Nalu, coached his brother, Talia, got to know his sisters. And just always through his time in Alabama was just a voice. I never bugged him, but random texts. For a while, him and Jake Fromm were on a text thread. We'd bust each other's chops all the time. Then Tua and I I'd pray for him. I'd encourage him when he got hurt, let him know I was thinking about him. He bounced a couple things off me over his career. I think more than anything else, just a trusted voice. And when they asked me to do this, it was more than just training. This was a unique situation. This was oversee a team that would really be bridging the gap from injured Tua to NFL ready Tua. And that's more than quarterback drills. That's more than watching film. That was very all encompassing. I think they trusted my ability to put together a team, oversee a team, have a plan, have a strategy, work with the doctors, and make it the best possible solution for them as a family.
So with that as the backdrop, and I'd like to get into specifically the training and how that's been looking to this point, but I'd also like to go back to just one of the things I love about talking quarterbacks with you is you're really good at articulating a player's skill sets in a very illustrative way. I remember back when Tua was in the Elite 11, I want to say you described him as an artist and an artist with the football. And I thought that was a really apt way of kind of describing his game. Everyone's seen Tua play at this point, most have. I'm curious if you could just sort of give me your description, how you view Tua in terms of what his strengths are, what makes him a special quarterback.
Well, I think there's a couple layers to it. Number one, his training. And I think I've always said you can be nurtured into this position. It's nurture as much as nature. And if you go back to his background with Vinny Passy as his high school coach, Nalu, his dad, who knows as much about, coaching quarterbacks as many that I've been around. And then you get Lane Kiffin. And I know Lane is a polarizing figure, but Lane knows a lot of football and knows how to evaluate football players and coach them. So he gets Lane. He's got, I think Dable was an influence.
Right.
You got Loxley. You have Sarkisian. Oh, and by the way, you have the best coach maybe in the history of college football as the umbrella coach to all of it. So he's had an incredible foundation that he's worked with. I think the second thing that's really hard to articulate is how he sees the field.
Yeah.
I think this is why I use that metaphor of him being an artist is, he can see things that most can't see. His eyes, he doesn't just have clarity, but he's got quick eyes too. Like he can bounce from one read to the next faster than the majority of NFL players. And then his skill set allows him to play as fast as his eyes. So he's so compact, he's so twitchy, that when his brain says, okay, it's open, his eyes say it, and he throws it. That process, that three-step process, is exponentially faster than most people. It allows him to play the game differently than most. He also has great spatial awareness. He and Joe Burrow does, by the way, too. Joe's as good as anybody I've studied. But these two players have this ability to feel people around them and feel the appropriate space. So, for instance, my quarterback, Luther Richardson, is a really good football player, great high school, going to be a great high school quarterback. He's still learning what a guy is 2 feet away from him or 1 foot away or
Right.
6 inches.
Right.
Tua, Joe have this ability that they can play whether it's 8 inches or 12 inches or 16 inches or 3 feet, and they know that without having to see it. It's the best way I can explain it. And then power. This is where I don't think Tua gets enough credit. He's incredibly powerful. So let's use cars, engines as an example. Joe Burrow's a luxury sedan. Okay, he has a lot of horsepower, but if you've ever driven a luxury sedan, there's a lag. When you press on the gas, it goes, okay, all right, now it's time to go. That's Joe Burrow. It's a great thing to have. I think they're 6 Series Mercedes. I don't even know the luxury car brands, but he's an A8 Audi. Okay,
Yeah,
I do know that one. Tua's a Maserati. Tua, when you just barely touch on the gas, you get jolted. There's that torque that those engines have. He's got such immediate power. He doesn't have to gather into his power. There's no lag. He can tap into it, whether it's his feet or his arm, immediately. I think since you're giving me a long form way of answering, I usually get 90 seconds to answer
No, that's great.
It's all this stuff, and then you put into the pot that he's got a unique football mind. Like he knows a lot of football. When Ken Wisenhunt was in this office with me, and we're going over high-level NFL XO stuff, it was amazing how strong his foundation it was with the run game protections, route concepts, defensive fronts, blitz packages, secondary profiles. He just had a vast understanding of football. How engaging he is. I've stole this from somebody I've been using as a standard statement. He makes you feel more important than you really are.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great trait to have as a human being. Like when you're around people, you make them feel more important than they actually think they are. Tua does that for his teammates, his coaches, the kids that come up and ask him for autographs, grandparents, people in the grocery store, like the people I've seen him around in the last few months. When you're around them, you just feel like you're a better version of yourself. So it's all this stuff. You mix it all together, and I think he's the single best prospect I've ever seen. I know I've had some comments taken out of context, but he throws a football as well as I've seen a guy throw a football. I worked with Aaron Rodgers at this stage of Aaron's career, where he was at Cal at the time. Jeff Tedford was his coach. Jeff Tedford was my coach. We're very good friends. We would throw in the summers. Tua is light years ahead of Aaron Rodgers at this stage of their development. Now, Aaron went on and grew a ton with the Packers. But if you looked at them as 21-year-old kids, it's not even close. Like you said, I've seen most of these quarterbacks that are playing the NFL, Power 5 starters through the Elite 11 series. I've yet to see one that matches Tua from a total package. So saying all that, I'm obviously very bullish on him. Yeah. But he's a unique kid.
So I think people that have watched Tua play, it's obvious how good he is, and you do a great job of putting into words and really articulating that ability. I think obviously now here the draft is approaching. We're just over a week out, and the mock drafts are coming out, and people are talking about Justin Herbert moving up the board, and really, I mean, it's never a discussion about Tua's ability when people talk about him moving down in the draft. It's about his health, and you've been as close to him as any. You have as much insight into this as anyone outside of the Tagovailoa family or who's a doctor that's in these physicals. I'm just curious from your perspective, kind of where do you see his health at right now? How do you feel about his mobility and durability?
Well, one, I don't even know how to read an MRI or a CAT scan or any of this stuff. I know that the doctors that I've talked to, because I would never do any of the layers of training without clearing with them first, all cleared them with flying colors. In fact, their comments to me were way better than we could ever possibly hope for in terms of healing, in terms of blood flow, cartilage growing, all that stuff, all the doctor stuff that's what they get paid for. I just didn't know what I could do with him.
Right.
So he was day one, March 9th was our first day where we could do dynamic stuff on the field. He had gone through 2 brutal months of rehab and getting ready for this day. And I had scripted like a 35-minute day, just some light movement. I figured there'd be some protecting of his hip, some fatigue, probably being overly careful. And an hour and 15 minutes later, and every footwork drill I could make up to kind of test his endurance, he was crushing it. He's better than he was before. I think the reason for that is one, Luke Richardson, who is my strength and conditioning coach here, but people go, oh, he's ice. No, he was the Houston Texans human performance director. He won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos. It's with the Jacksonville Jaguars, started EXOS with Mark Versagen. So maybe the most reputable strength conditioning coach in the NFL. Bridged him through, okay, this is rehab, but it's also mobility, stability. Okay, we're still in rehab, but now we have mobility, stability, and strength. Okay, it's rehab, but it's mobility, stability, strength, endurance, core, and really did this incredible job with Tua, along with his diet, kind of remaking him, rebuilding his foundation. So when I got him March 9th, for this type of stuff, he looked better, he moved better. His endurance gained with each workout, but it was not low when it started. His work capacity, I mean, there were times I overloaded him just to see what he'd feel like the next day. He bounced back great. His recovery was fantastic. Yeah. He checked every box. We did the best we could in the pro day to kind of showcase that in a very small environment. But there were days, we had a day, I don't know, a week before the pro day maybe, where we had more space. And we went through, a 95 plus play script, multiple routes, multiple drills, really getting after him a little bit because I knew we had the weekend to recover. And his last throw, I'll say this about Tua, his last throw of every day I ever worked with him always had to be his best throw. So no matter how tired he was, no matter how fatigued he was, no matter how much I put on him, he made sure that his last rep, and I always tell him, okay, we got 5 more reps, we got 3 more reps. Okay, last rep of the day, no do-overs. He never had that dip that you see guys have at the end of a workout where, they're just trying to gut it out. He was thriving at the end of every workout.
So in addition to your background with Tua, you obviously with the Elite 11 we talked about, you've been around these guys a lot. You spent days with them on end, and what I love about the Elite 11 is the depth you guys get into it, and so you do have an opportunity to kind of experience these guys as more than just guys throwing at targets. So with that said, there's some other of your former Elite 11 guys in the draft as well. You mentioned you're on a text chain with Tua and Jake Fromm, Jacob Eason's in there as well. I'm just curious if you could sort of take me back and give me some of your recollections of them beyond just maybe even the play. Because I've said before, coming out of Elite 11 and coming out of that 20, I guess 17 class, that Tua and Jake Fromm had two of the best sets of intangibles of any quarterback I've seen in different ways, but both in their own way, remarkable in that sense. Can you take me back a couple of these other guys that you've been around and just sort of give me some of your remembrances of them through that process?
Yeah, I start with Jake. I agree with you. He's a difference maker type leader. He's a guy that gets the most from the least, the best from the best. He connects with everybody. He can connect with, a 12-year-old in the mall and a grandma at a nursery, a convalescent home, and the grocery clerk at the Publix, and the guy playing pickup basketball at the park. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, what demographic you are. He knows how to connect with you. He keeps it fun. Like, even when it's hard and it's strenuous and it's stressful, Jake has that ability to kind of make it easy. That's why we nicknamed him Jake from State Fromm. Like, he just makes things easy.
Yeah.
He's got more talent than people say. Now, he doesn't have elite talent, but he's got a good enough arm. He's got good enough feet. He's got good enough size. He's a guy that's going to play in the NFL for a long time because of all those reasons. It was funny. I was talking to a general manager yesterday, and we segued from Tua to Jake, and he saw it the same way. It's like, the more you study him, the more work you do on Jake Fromm, the more you fall in love with him. And I think that's how we felt even back when he was 17 years old. Is
Sure.
The more we got to be around him, the more we appreciated who he was. And that's what the NFL is about. Like, you go in, and they don't know who you are at first, but the longer you're in there, the more they appreciate you, the more they start to understand, oh, we have even more than we expected we'd get. So I think that's going to be the story of Jake Fromm. Jacob Eason, while always been a talented guy. I mean, you're talking about a guy when he was 16 years old that can, throw it through a wall. I think he grew as a passer. I was always skeptical of his development because he was a one-speed guy. I've seen very few one-speed guys make it because they're only accurate when they can throw it as hard as they can. That's how they grew up throwing it. Guanantaro is that way. The kid at Tennessee. We've got a lot of them that their ceiling would be how accurate they could be, how effective they could be once they learn how to change speeds on the ball. Yeah. Jacob learned how to do that. He became a better passer when he went to Washington. He's a really good athlete for a big guy. I think there's some patterns in his performances late in games that concern me. And those same concerns were the concerns we had when we had him in Elite 11. I think he's got some hurdles he's got to get over as a player late in games, as a performer late in events that are getting in his way of being as good as he can be. But he's wildly talented.
What about Jalen Hurts? Do you have much of because you still got to spend some time with Jalen. I think maybe even have spent some time with him since in some settings. Curious your thoughts on his makeup.
Yeah, more time with Jalen than many of them because he went to the finals in LA that Elite 11 year. I get all the years mixed up. You know better than it's that. But I had to come back twice to be a counselor at the opening and the finals. So we've spent tons of time around Jalen. He's as important to the Elite 11 as anybody because he's had such an influence on so many young quarterbacks in terms of being a counselor, a mentor, a wise voice into their lives. I'm very bullish on Jalen. Again, general manager yesterday, I was like, why would you take, after Herbert, why would you take any quarterback before Jalen Hurts? Because even if he's not your day one starter, even if he's not in your plans to be a starter, he has more value to your roster than any other quarterback in this draft, not named Burrow or Herbert. He can be your personal protector on punt. Right now, you have 6 fakes for the course of the year that nobody's going to know how to defend. He can cover kicks. He can create. He right away can be a red zone 4-minute quarterback with unique packages with RPOs, RROs, trick plays, 2 quarterback system stuff, power runner. It's hard to account for that guy in the NFL, and the quarterback's a powerful runner, not just a fast guy. He's durable. He's going to be a locker room leader. He can throw. That's the other thing about Jalen. People go, oh, he's not that good of a thrower. He's not an elite thrower. I think he would tell you he's not an elite thrower right now. He's a very good deep ball thrower. And what you do when you're a powerful runner and you can create schemes where they're afraid to rush you, well, you have more time to throw the ball. When you have more time to throw the ball, you let your fast dudes get further down the field, and you have more of a vertical opportunity. I think Jalen's going to be a successful pro. I think he's a combination of Taysom Hill and Tim Tebow. I've heard the Taysom Hill comparison. He's not the athlete that Taysom Hill is. Taysom Hill is an elite, world-class athlete. 4'4", super twitchy, incredibly strong. Like, there's not a lot of Taysom Hills.
Right.
Tim Tebow, one of the greatest leaders we've ever seen, powerful. Think power, go back to the car analogy, think muscle car, right? He's a 60s muscle car with a big old engine. I don't know all those engines, but one of those big old awesome engines that goes, right? That's Tim Tebow, that's Jalen Hurts. Jalen's a better thrower than Tim was. Probably knows more quarterback than Taysom does. You kind of put those two together, and I think that's who you have is Jalen Hurts. I would draft Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round and not blink an eye. Even if there was somebody that could help me next year at a position like corner or linebacker, I would still take him because the value he adds to my roster and what he does for my locker room.
All right, so I'm going to give you a little practice for when you're talking quarterbacks next year around this time. Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, 2 more guys you spent a lifetime with. They're going to be probably the 2 names that everyone's talking about. Can you kind of just delineate between those 2 and what you've observed from them and your time around them?
I mean, both awesome prospects. Start with Trevor. Trevor's the most unique stature, horsepower, twitch guy I've ever studied. 2 is the best power twitch combination, so horsepower and twitch, but he doesn't have the stature. He's only 6 feet tall. Just Trevor's 6'5 plus, 6'5 and a half. I mean, I look up at him. I'm 6'4", pre-knee replacement. I was 6'4", and I look up at him. I mean, he is massive. He's still he's got tons of juice. He's got tons of twitch. He's super smart. The thing that people don't talk about Trevor is he is a football junkie. He can't get enough. He'll never stop. He's Peyton Manning, Tom Brady that way. Like, he just wants to know more. I remember at the Elite 11, Craig Nall was his coordinator, and he would wake Craig up in the middle of the night and ask him questions about football. And Trevor didn't have the greatest Elite 11 of all time. I think he finished middle of the pack, but he didn't care. He was there to soak it all in. He just wanted to learn football. He wanted to be around great coaches. He can't get enough. I mean, that's what I love about him. I only have one issue with Trevor. I think he's going to be one of the unique prospects we've ever studied. He does play too long. He needs too much space to play sometimes. He's got to condense everything. He's got to become more compact. He will. Yeah. He works with the right people. He can change like that. I just don't think he's ever had to. I don't think he's ever had anybody in his ear saying, hey, one day you're going to have to learn how to play in a phone booth. Yeah. And right now you're playing on a tabletop. And, you know, I hope he works with the right people that understand the biomechanics, that he actually has more horsepower in there. He actually has more juice than he even knows when he learns to play with better rotary understanding in a smaller space, less forward stride, less arm movement. Mm-hmm. When he figures that out, he may go down as one of the great prospects of all time. Justin Fields will be one of the best athletes we've ever evaluated as a quarterback. You have Lamar Jackson and Michael Vick that have this incredible twitch and speed. They didn't have the power that Justin Fields has. I mean, you've seen him. He's a stud. Yeah. I mean, he has big shoulders, big butt, big calves, big forearms, big hands, big joints. Like, he's got the body the joint structure of a 6'5" guy, and he runs 4.4.
Yeah.
And he's smart, and he's tough, and he's a leader. I just don't think he's a refined passer yet. He hasn't enough reps. I mean, he's only played 1 year. I think this year is paramount for him, that it's not just RPO, it's not just quarterback runs. I would study, like I've already told coaches, start doing cut-ups right now of Justin, must-pass situations. 3rd and long, end of half, end of game, 2 scores down. They may never be 2 scores down, but 2 scores down. That's how you're going to have to evaluate Justin, because before he plays in the league, he's going to have to prove that he can be a refined passer. I know he can do it, but it's just a matter of reps that he needs in live bullet reps to do it before he decides to go to the NFL.
So I've already kept you much longer than I told you I would. So this is my last question for you.
I'm fine.
You came into the Elite 11, and there's an evaluation element to what you do. And I'm a kind of an evaluator at heart. That's why it's sort of a selfish question. I'm just curious your observations here, because when you jumped in, you were looking at high school kids, and you come from sort of an NFL background. And over the course of the last however long you've been doing it, how has the way you've looked at high school prospects changed in terms of maybe where you're more forgiving than you once were, or maybe areas of emphasis that you emphasize more than you would have otherwise? Like, how have you learned in terms of the evaluation process through the years? I'm curious, given all the exposure you've had to these guys, and how you came in really so blind to sort of evaluating high school players prior.
Yeah, I used to put a ton of weight into how they played under chaos within the pocket, and then how they could keep getting through progressions, because I know that at some point in their life, they're going to have to be in a phone booth with a lot of big angry men trying to eat them, and say, you know what, I'm okay with that. I'm going to pass that up because I know that's a better option coming as number 2 or number 3. That is the NFL game. People can tell you whatever they want. I lived it for 14 years. I studied as much as anybody. The great ones call poise, call whatever you want, but they can do that. So I used to put a huge emphasis on that. What I learned was you have to evaluate the quarterback based on the trends that you're seeing with offensive football. And what we've seen with offensive football is more space and more time. Those are 2 common denominators that we've seen. As the game's become more horizontal, more RPO driven, more gimmicky driven, and gimmicks are good. We use them. I love them. So gimmicks in a good way. I don't mean to knock modern day offense. You have more space and you have more time. So there might only be a handful of plays that it matters how you play in the pocket and how you go through progressions, because really what matters is how quickly you can get it out, how fast you can process, and how well you can locate. So where I used to not put a ton of weight into an RPO slant, anybody should be able to do that, right? Well, now I put a lot more weight into how precise is he with the RPO slant. What did he see before? Did he guess on that, or did he actually read it? Did he actually put it in the belly and see the will linebacker take 2 steps inside before he took it back and put it right on the face? I came from an evaluation kind of model that, where you did it in the game mattered the most. So I had a lot of success evaluating quarterbacks from the college level to the pro level based on critical moment performance. Mm-hmm. Anybody can do it in the first quarter. Anybody can do it in the third quarter on 1st and 10. How many guys can do it when it matters the most? When they know you're throwing, when you're 6 points down, you're playing in a huge environment. That mattered more to me. What I've learned about in high school football is that we're evaluating kids that are losing by 30 every game because they have inferior talent. Or you're evaluating kids that are up 30 in the second. And we're up by 30 in the second quarter twice this year. Yeah. You're putting your backups in, and you're trying not to embarrass the other team. So you kind of have to take some of that situational stuff out of it. And then the other thing too was early on, if I made any mistakes, and I made some early on through the Elite 11, I didn't get to know them as well. I didn't talk to their high school principal, their geometry teacher, the janitor, the barber in the town, whatever it is. So I didn't get it. You could fool me at a regional. You could fool me for 4 days in LA. you can't fool me now when I'm doing my background. And when my team, when my team's doing the background check.
Right.
So I think I've gotten better with that. We're still going to make mistakes because they're young. We don't know where they're going to college. I think the biggest issue that we find is, and this is not lip service, we don't get in the recruiting world.
Mm-hmm.
We don't tell them where to go. We don't give them advice. We try to give them global understanding. But I don't want to tick off all my buddies in college football. So I don't want to tell Trevor, hey, go to Clemson, don't go to Alabama. Dabo's going to be happy. Nick's going to be pissed.
Yeah.
Right? So I just stayed out of that world. Sometimes I wish I wouldn't have, because we could have saved some kids some big mistakes. We just knew the fit wasn't right.
Right.
Not you're not good enough. Not that it's not a good program. It's just not the right program for you. And that's the denominator that we can't figure out. Is we know we have quarterback A. We know he's every bit as good as all these guys that went on to be Heisman Trophy candidates or play in the NFL. But we know he's about to make a decision that it's going to kill him, like career-wise. It just is the wrong fit. It doesn't fit his skill set. The coaching doesn't fit his type of personality. It's not the right people around him. It's the wrong region. He's too far away from mom and dad. He's too close to mom and dad. Whatever it is, that's the one that keeps me up at night. Like I really tell the kids every year, what keeps me up at night are these failures at Elite 11 that should not have been failures. They should not have been misses. They were too good at kids, too talented, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out, and that still breaks my heart.
Well, listen, you've done a great job with Elite 11, and I really do appreciate the way you pour into that event, because it's great for those kids, but also it's a great event for us, and it's always something we enjoy covering. It gives us great insight. So thanks a lot, and hey, thanks for the time, and best of luck here to you and Tua coming up in the draft, and hopefully we'll catch up again down the road.
Thanks, brother. Anytime. Thanks for what you do.
All right.